You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red as Nottingham Forest stand on the brink of the playoffs, needing just a point to secure their place in the end of season showdown after beating Peterborough 1-0 on Saturday, although second place is far from out of the equation with Bournemouth 5 points clear with 4 games to go. And to discuss all that, first of all, we're joined by Reds legend, former player, manager and chairman, Frank Clark. Hello, Frank, you well?
Yeah, I'm fine, Matt. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good of you to join us. Very much appreciate it. And our second guest, returning to punditry duties after kindly hosting a bit too well last week, is Michael Temple. Temps, are you okay?
Good, thanks, Matt. Good to have you back.
Well, good to be back. I did listen, and you were spot on last week, so very much appreciated for stepping in. Frank, you were there on Saturday. We'll come to the game in a minute. I mean, it's a happy hunting ground for you, Peterborough. Forest and Peterborough go hand in hand after your win there in 1994 to seal promotion. Before we get to the game on Saturday, I mean, what are your memories of 1994? That was a momentous day for the club.
Yeah, it was mostly good, but soured a little bit at the end by the behaviour of some of our supporters. Not all of them, but some of them, who got carried away at the end of the game and caused a lot of trouble in the ground and in Peterborough. I was actually asked by the chief of police on the day to broadcast to them over the public address system to ask them just to behave themselves, and if they wanted to celebrate, to go back to Nottingham, which took the gloss of it a little bit, obviously. But other than that, it was a great day for us. It didn't start off very well. We were 2 down, I think, after about 20 minutes. But it actually turned out all right in the end.
Do you see any similarities between that team you managed and this team? Because you started badly as well and made a change in signing Baheen, and Forest made a change in changing manager. Luckily for you, that didn't happen in 1994. But do you see any similarities?
It might have done. Well, I don't see too many similarities, really, other than they're playing very, very well, and they're into the playoffs. You know, I can't see Middlesbrough pulling back a 19-goal deficit, which they will have to do over the last 3 games. So there's a similarity there, and hopefully there's still an outside chance that they would catch Bournemouth. I think that's very, very difficult, especially as 3 of the last 4 games are away from home. You know, it's very difficult to win a game away from home in any division in England. And to win 3, which is probably what we'd have to do to hope to catch Bournemouth, I think is going to be a very tall order.
What did you make of the game, Temps? So we all watched it, but we'll bring you in. What did you make of the game on Saturday?
Well, it was a bit scrappy. A typical end-of-season game, really. You know, you can't expect top-quality, free-flowing football all the time. The lads have been battling away now for over 9 months. At this stage of the season, it can become a battle. Peterborough made it very difficult for us. They were fighting for their existence in the Championship, of course. So it obviously wasn't as free-flowing as we would have liked, or as Steve would have liked. But the important thing was to get the win and get the 3 points. And
Temps, what was your take?
Yeah, I like what Frank said there. The result was all that mattered, given where we're at, and having the outside chance of chasing Bournemouth for automatic promotion. So professional from that perspective. I was a bit disappointed that Peterborough didn't throw more at us. It didn't look to me like, you know, a desperate attacking attempt of a relegated team to try and save their souls. They sent their keeper up for that corner on like the 92nd minute, but for me, they could have tried more offensively earlier on, and if that had have happened, I think we'd have picked them off. But as it turned out, made us battle. We weren't at our best, but got the job done and 3 points in the bag.
How hard are those games as a manager, Frank, when you know you're going to a team that in theory is fighting for its life? It's on paper for us so much better than Peterborough, but it must be a challenge as a manager to prepare for a game like that, shouldn't it?
Well, listen, it's a challenge for the manager to prepare for every game. But you know, Steve's been there. I think his experience in the playoff for the last 2 years will stand him in good stead when they do come along. But you know what to expect. we're individually a better side than Peterborough. The statistics would tell you that. But they're fighting for their, as I say, fighting for their existence in the Championship. And I thought Michael was a bit hard on them there. They did what they can do, you know. They're not an outstanding team with a load of outstanding individuals. Although I really like the young 19-year-old centre back who played, I think, with number 2. I think he's got a great future in the game. But they were always just going to have to battle and scrap. You know, they had to try and stop us playing and get our free-flowing football going.
And the goal attempts, Sam Surridge, yet again. I mean, he's on fire, isn't he, Michael?
Yeah, really impressed with Surridge. His one-touch finishing is as good as anything I've seen around the division this year. I think he averages a goal per 90 minutes as well. And not easy coming to a club at that stage, knowing that you're not going to be an automatic first pick. You're going to have to take your chance when you get it. And he has. He had those minutes off the bench where he showed us what he could do, scored important goals. So, albeit in different circumstances, I'm sure he'd love to be pushing Keenan Davies on merit. He's in because he has to be, but he doesn't look like anybody understudy at the minute. He looks like a championship-ready striker, and I think he's got more goals in him between now and the end of the season.
Gary Birtles is a huge fan of Surridge. Frank, what do you make of him?
Yeah, I like him. You know, he works very, very hard for the team every time he gets on the pitch. And as Michael said, you know, his goals per minute per game, his ratio is very, very good. When he gets a chance, he seems to finish it. With an excellent finish on Saturday, and hopefully he will stay fit till the end of the season.
It was a nice cross from Brennan as well. I mean, obviously, 1979 is a bit different, but a cross to the back post for someone to dive and head in Trevor Francis style is always nice to see. And
now you're really stretching things, Matt.
I am.
Yeah. No, listen, it was an excellent goal on its own merits.
And the quality from Brennan to cross with his left foot, I mean, that's his weaker foot. Obviously, we know how special Brennan is, but that's a fine delivery, wasn't it, Frank?
It was, yeah, an excellent delivery. Yeah, and you're right. We know how much quality Brennan's got, but he'll be finding it quite difficult at the minute. You know, he's just a young boy, and he played in the first team now. I think certainly the last 30 games. Can't remember where he was in the team at the start of the season. But it's been a long, hard season, and we forget that he is only 20 years of age. But he keeps coming up with these moments of quality that can decide a game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stick with Brennan Temps. EFL Championship Young Player of the Year, he was named last night. We're lucky to have him, aren't we now? That's the general consensus it's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah, and he's taken the stairs to where he is as well. That season out on loan in League One where he dominated at that level, shone for Lincoln. But then to come in to Forest, his first season as a Championship player for all intents and purposes, and not just to be a bit part player, not to make impact from the bench, to get in that side and just make himself undroppable to the point that he's been recognised as the best prospect in the Championship. I think is an incredible journey. And I think we all have a suspicion he's going to be playing Premier League football next season, hopefully with Forest. But the thing that I really like about him is he's not ultra selfish. He knows now when to cross, when to pass, when to square it. And his assist record is almost as impressive as his goal scoring record. And I think sometimes when an attacking player breaks into the side, they're perhaps guilty of being a little bit too selfish and taking pot shots and wasting good team chances. He's not doing that. His instincts are first class, and I think his potential is truly something else. And let's hope he's wearing our shirt next year.
What is his potential, Frank? Obviously, you've had a 40-year association with the club. You've seen a lot of talented young players, as well as in your general career away from Forest. How good can Brennan be? Well,
yeah, I think what Michael said is right. He's certainly he'll be able to become a Premier League player. He's only 20. Obviously, he's still got things to learn and improve on. But hopefully, it'll be with us. I think as Michael was hinting at, really, it'll be difficult to keep him if we don't go up. but he's had a wonderful season. He's a credit to himself and to the game. I do think that sometimes he doesn't get the protection from referees that he ought to. Not because he's young, that doesn't make any difference. But I think I can think back this season at least 3 or 4 occasions when he should have had penalties given for challenges on Brennan. And I think referees are far too quick these days to wave appeals away. And I think he's been booked twice for diving, which is absolutely ludicrous. So he's got unlimited potential, but it's just a start. It's his first year at this level, and I'm sure that he'll go on. And one thing I'm sure about, he'll keep his feet on the ground because his father will make sure of that.
Do you think, I think back to you being on here before saying that when you took over as Forest manager, you had to shake hands with Roy Keane and say thank you very much, wish you well at Man United. Do you think if Forest don't go up, then Steve Cooper will have to shake Brennan's hand and say, wish you well, there's no real chance of keeping you?
Well, it won't be the same scenario because Roy had a clause in his contract which guaranteed a move for him, really, that if the club got relegated, Roy could move. So the circumstances are a little bit different with Brennan, but I do think it will be very, very difficult to keep him if we don't go this season. It's very, very difficult throughout the game for any championship club to hold on to a really outstanding, talented young player, which Brennan is, when a big Premier League club comes calling,
The one negative on Saturday, I guess, was Lewis Grabban going off injured so soon after he came on. That is getting to be a bit of a concern now, isn't it, Temps? Because we've only got Sam Surridge now as a regular striker.
Yeah, the depth has gone, hasn't it? Sam Surridge, for all intents and purposes, is Plan C in the Forest team, and he's doing his proud with the performances that he's putting in. But I think it would be tough for Grabs to force his way back in now between now and the end of the season. You hope and pray, as has been the suggestion, that Keenan will take part in those playoff games. But yeah, Lewis brings presence on the training ground, in the dressing room as well. I'm sure he'll be in and around the squad, and we've heard reports, haven't we, about the work he's done with the likes of Surridge and Davies, just to pass on the benefit of his experience. But I've enjoyed seeing him come on last 20 minutes, the last few weeks. He has a certain poise, retains the ball very well, links up play. Clearly, in his own head, he can play 11, 7, and 10 as well as 9. But yeah, more than anything else, we're just looking threadbare as in the striking department. And should anything happen to Surridge, then we're going to have to make some really difficult decisions to drag people out of position. So yeah, big blow for Forest that he was so quick to leave the field at the weekend.
How worried would you be, Frank, if Grabban's out for a couple of weeks at least now?
Well, it's a concern, obviously. Michael's right. He can still be a great influence around the club, but if he's not fit enough to get onto the pitch, then that's one of our very important players missing from the squad. And Kieran already is. That's a big blow. And we've got minimum 6, maybe 7 hard games left in the next month. And that's going to test the whole squad to the maximum, numbers wise, and it will be a worry if we're down to one striker. 1 or 2 of the young boys who I've seen playing under 23 and that, who are very, very promising, but obviously it wouldn't be an ideal time to throw one of those lads in at this short notice.
Could you play Brennan as a striker, Frank? So I know he's done it a bit for Wales. Could he do it for Forest? Is it a big?
Well, he could. Yeah, of course you could. Yeah, I think Brennan can play anyway. I think his best position as he gets older might be the number 10. Playing behind a striker or behind 2 strikers. He's such a good footballer. He can play anyway. But obviously, playing as a central striker is a bit of a specialist job, and We thought 2 weeks ago we thought we were very lucky in that we had two very, very good ones and a third one coming back to fitness, and in Davies, Surridge and Graben. And now it looks as though I might only have one. So that is a bit of a worry.
Temps, would you rather move Brennan out of position, Temps, or would you rather bring in a Dale Taylor or a Julian Larson, as I see Chris has mentioned in the comments here, and a couple of other people have mentioned young lads? I mean, what would you prefer to do?
Well, my hunch is that Steve Cooper won't do that. Now's not the time to blood players that haven't even been on the bench, really. My hunch is you've got to get your best 11 players on the pitch. So if one or two of your key strikers are out, as they are at the minute, in Grabs and Davis, if Surridge was to go down, then yes, you would drag Brennan to 9 and bring in a Joe Lolly rather than blood an untested youngster. So we will lose something for doing that. Of course we will. But I think we'll lose far less for putting Brennan up top and Lolly out wide than we would for elevating a lad from the 23s and expecting him to get up to the pace of where we're at, play at the quality that we are in the pressure cooker of, potentially a run to automatic promotion, but more likely a playoff semi-final. Just can't see it happening. I cannot see an untested player coming into the starting 11 at this stage. They may have to go on the bench. They may get some minutes towards the end of the game, but I really don't think Steve Cooper, as he is, he's not a tinker man. He backs the boys that are in the 11, and as long as they're playing well and carrying out the game plan and getting the results, they're there to stay. It's he's doing the right thing for me, and I think despite the suggestion that they'd be the next cab off the rank, I can't see Taylor or Larson getting minutes this season.
I mean, it's Fulham up next tomorrow. Are you saying kind of, not writing off second place, Frank, but you're quite conservative about it?
Well, only that it's a very, very difficult thing for us to do. We've only got one home game. We've got 3 games away out of the 4, and it's very difficult to win away from home in the Championship in any division in England. And it's going to be a massive ask to expect us to pull that points difference back to Bournemouth in such a short space of time. I'm not writing it off. I'm just looking at the 2 options. I don't think it's likely to happen. But Steve won't be looking at that. Steve will just be looking at tomorrow night. He'll be looking at making sure that the players are ready for what will be a very, very difficult game at Fulham. And getting them prepared and ready for that. And once that game is over, then he'll start looking at Swansea. That's how he operates, and that's a great strength in a manager. You've got to be very careful that you don't take your eye off the ball and look too far ahead. But I wouldn't disagree with Michael. Steve has got all his big decisions right, more or less, this season. And I'm sure that whatever he does, I hope he'll be right.
Is the Fulham game any easier because they're already promoted, Frank, or does that make no difference at all?
It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. You certainly can't go there thinking because they're promoted it'll be easy. They're a very good team with some very good players, and they know the spotlight will be on them tomorrow night. And they will want to put on a show and show the football world and their own supporters. They'll want to show how good they are. So I don't think it makes a lot of difference. It won't make any difference to how Steve sets up and prepares the team.
I mean, Fulham beat Forest 4-0 at home, Temps. How are you feeling about this game?
Fulham score a lot of goals, don't they? 99 league goals this season. For comparison, Bournemouth and Forest are next best up with 66. So massive attacking threat. I don't think they've got their feet on the beach. I think they're motivated to finish the season on a high. Mitrovic is certainly motivated to try and rewrite the record books with his scoring. Really challenging game. But I know we won't go down there and settle for a draw, set up for with a defensive structure. We'll go down there to cause problems. We'll give time and space to the boys out wide and have a real good go. And you know what? If we go down there with attacking intent and end up getting picked off, then so be it. Because I just hate us to die wondering while that slim chance of automatic promotion exists. So toughest game of the season on paper, will be more than a match for them. But yeah, the possibility of defeat has to be acknowledged because they are the class team in the division. They do score a lot of goals. They've got the best striker in the league, and their record this year speaks for itself.
Do you make any special plans for Mitrovic, Frank? Because if you were in Steve Cooper's seat, would you do anything different to normal because he's got 42 goals, or do you just have to play your game?
No, I don't think Steve will. Like Michael says, we'll want to go and play our own game and try and impose our own style on them. No doubt Mitrovic is a real problem, and I've got some friends in London. I might ring them up and say, any chance of kidnapping him for a week and keep him out of the way. He's been an incredible success this season. So they'll be aware of that. They're not there. Steve will talk about it, and as he talks about opposition players before every game. But the way our three centre backs have been playing over the last few weeks, I'm fairly confident that they can deal with anybody. What I would say about the 4-0 defeat at home, I took a lot of hope out of that one, which you might find a bit strange, because if you remember, we were 1 down, and the game was pretty tight and very close, and we were a bit unlucky actually to be 1 down, and this was very early in Steve's reign, and he made some changes to the team, substitutions, to try and win the game. He hadn't given it up, even though Fulham, or even then, were the best team in the division. He hadn't given it up. He wasn't prepared to sit there and just let the game drift out as a close 1-0 defeat, if you like, or 2-0 defeat. He made some changes and brought some attacking players on, and unfortunately, it didn't work for him. And Fulham were able to pick us off, really. And I think that's one of his great strengths throughout this season. He's never been afraid to make substitutions to change the course of the game, whether we were winning or whether we're not winning. I think that's very refreshing. It shows a manager who is very courageous. Nobody wants to lose 4-0 at home, but at least they lost 4-0 at home trying to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, the fans, I was there. I remember the fans clapped them off. And I think someone missed a good chance at 1-0 or 2-0 that might have changed the game, a real sitter. So, yeah, I think you're spot on there. Any rotation for you, Frank, in this game? Obviously, Steve Cook's waiting to get back in, or does he have to bide his time?
I don't know. Without seeing the players in training and watching them at close quarters, I'd be very reluctant to comment on rotation. Ideally, at this stage, rotation would be a good thing, but not if it's going to weaken your team, And really, only Steve and his staff will know whether to do that or not do that.
I mean, it's a tough balancing act, isn't it, Temps, to keep rolling? I remember Paul Hart just rolled like 11 players for 10 games in a row, and it worked. But these days, maybe even 20 years later, the game's a lot faster, isn't it, Temps? Now it's a gamble to keep going.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Steve has picked the same team more or less, apart from the odd body. When somebody's been injured, he's had to change it. Well, he's picked the same team more or less over the last 2 to 3 months. We've not lost a game, So you've got to say that he's been getting that one right.
Yeah, Matt's mentioned the big dilemma there, which is when do you bring Cook back in? So Figueiredo's came in because needs most well documented that he almost left the club in January, and that there've been a couple of high-profile mistakes. But outside of those, he's played extremely well, and I think he had a good game at the weekend too. He's winning his heads and tackles, very comfortable on the ball, very comfortable when we're kind of changing our point of attack and playing the ball between the back three. So I've got no concern about Figueiredo, but there'll come a time when Cook is perceived to be ready and he'll dive back in. Cooper was rotating at one point, which was when Max Lowe was fit and playing left back, and there was good reason to get Garner, Yates, Colback, and Zinkernagel into that centre mid. But since Colback's gone left side, and Lowe would have a battle getting that position back, given how he's playing at the minute. That policy seems to have gone out the window. So I don't expect any changes. But of course, there will be a moment where he wants to get Cook back in that side.
How impressed are you with Colback, Frank? I mean, obviously you played that position throughout your career. It's a tough ask, isn't it, to go from midfield to left back, even if you have some aptitude for it?
Yeah, I think Jack's done absolutely fantastic job there, because he's not really playing like an orthodox left back. He's playing like a left wing back. That's what he's expected to do with the three centre backs in there, and he's supposed to play like a left wing back. And that's a very difficult job to do. But he's gone in there. Nobody expects to see him rampaging forward, but he's done a fair bit of that, and he did score a decent goal last week.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
Which he reckons he meant, and if that's what he says, good luck to him. But he's done a superb job in there. He really has. It surprised me. I was worried when Lowe got injured. I couldn't see an obvious replacement in the club at that time. But Jack's gone there, and he's done a really great professional job.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's harder to play as a fullback now because you can't a couple of bad tackles and you get 2 soft yellow cards against a quick winger? Does that make it even harder now or not?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you have to adapt your game, and it's even harder to be a wing back. You know, I could never have been a wing back when I played. All I'd getting up and down, and I hardly ever crossed the halfway line. You know, when I played left back, but that was what was expected of fullbacks in those days. You know, your job really was just to defend and give it to somebody who could play. But now, especially when you play with 3 centre backs, Spence and Colback or Lowe, are expected to gallop up and down that left touchline and create things and get in the box and score the odd goal. So it's not easy. It's not easy for somebody to go there who's never really played there. But that was an inspired decision by the manager. I would assume. No doubt he spoke to Jack about it. Jack just showed what a good professional he is. Not always being recognised at Forest as that by the crowd, but he's gone in there and shown what a great professional he is, and just got down and done the job.
True. Just wrapping up that Fulham game, then Forest need a point, as I said, to make the playoffs. That will mathematically confirm it. Going on to the EFL Awards last night, like we said, and we discussed, Brennan won the Young Player of the Year for the Championship. 3 players are in the Team of the Year: Spence, Worrell and Yates. I suppose we should talk about all 3 individually. Was anyone unlucky to miss out though, Michael? Maybe Scott McKenna or someone like that?
Yeah, that was the obvious one for me. I mean, first of all, yeah, thoroughly deserved the guys that are in there, but you can make such a case for McKenna. He just comes out on the right side of his duels every single game, dominant in the air, dominant in the tackle. But what I've seen more this year as well is more of a willingness to bring the ball out from defence, almost the way that Harry Maguire has been for England, and joining the attacks, trying to create the overload. He just seems far more comfortable on the ball as well. And last season I wasn't as convinced that he had that, but now for me he's definitely in that championship team of the year, and I hold him in the same regard as Joe Worrell. Worrell obviously a bit younger, more potential perhaps, and is even more comfortable on the ball. But yeah, I think Scott McKenna is the one that can count himself as being unlucky not to be in that 11.
Frank, I wanted to specifically ask you about Ryan Yates, because he's obviously had to win over the fans. Managers have backed him more than fans previously. Going back to Martin O'Neill, he probably broke through then. With your manager's hat on, I mean, what is it that you would like about Ryan Yates that you might pick him before a fan sees what a coach sees?
Well, I always liked his attitude from the day he was at the club as a young boy, and I watched him a couple of times when he was on loan. I think it was at Scunthorpe, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And he's always had a great attitude to the game, and he's worked very, very hard, and he's developed his game. I was always hoping to see him making forward runs and getting into the box more, because I did think that he could do that and he would score goals. And he's beginning to show that this season. I think he's got, 6 or 7 now? Is that right?
I think it might be 9 or something now.
There you are. I'm doing him a disservice there. So, goal-scoring midfield players are like gold, really. So full credit to the boy. He's got a wonderful attitude, and I've watched him kind of develop over the years, and I'm delighted he's now getting the recognition he deserves.
And do you have to give a lot of credit to Steve Cooper for releasing the shackles, like you say, to get into the box as well?
Well, yeah, you have to give the manager a little bit of credit for the way he sets up his team and the way he asks people to play. And then it's down to Ryan himself to go and show people how good he can be.
Jed Spence, Michael, that combination with Brennan, I mean, what would we say? That's Premier League quality, isn't it? That's torn by virtually every team apart this season.
See, I think Jed Spence could be a top 6 player, because he's in that Alexander Armstrong mode, isn't he? You remember that Carragher quote about
Alexander Arnold? Alexander Armstrong's a comedian.
Yeah, sorry, I've got, but that's it. I'll delete that sentence and start again. There's that famous Carragher quote about no one growing up with a poster of Gary Neville on their wall, because the role of the fullback at that time was to mark the winger and plug a channel ball. It's changed immeasurably now. It's how you launch your attack. So much goes through them. They're expected to be attacking players, and what often happens is someone like Jed Spence will be an attacking player as a kid, and just have his attributes moulded so he can become a fullback / wing back in the modern game. But I see Jed Spence going to playing top 6 football at some stage. I think he's that good because not only can he defend, when he does commit himself forward, he has the pace to get back into position. He's just relentlessly attacking, draws the foul, wins the penalties, frustrates the opposition, and what a player. But look, there are some quality Championship performance at other clubs that are in that 11 on merit too. And we of course get a bit blinded because we watch Forest week in, week out. But Jed Spence's career in the Premier League, I think, is assured now. And Middlesbrough fans must be rubbing their hands together, knowing they're going to get a healthy check for a player that they haven't been able to handle, haven't been able to get the best out of themselves. And his arrival at Forest has been unbelievable for all concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if you put your fullback hat back on again, Frank, the kind of evolution of a right back or left back it's come a long way, hasn't it? I mean, Jed Spence he's more of a winger than a fullback now, even when he plays as a right back. Yes,
it has. Yes, and that's certainly Jed's strongest point. He's still got a bit to learn as a defender, but he is a real threat getting forward. And I'm sure he'll have a great career in the game. And the fullback role has changed. More so when you play with 3 centre-backs. But even, like, you mentioned Trent at Liverpool. I mean, they play with an orthodox, well, I was going to say an orthodox back 4. And they don't play with an orthodox back 4, really. They just leave the 2 centre-halves and both full-backs bomb on, I mean, you saw that yesterday with the left back getting the first goal inside Everton's 6-yard box. So the role has changed, but when you play with wing backs and 3 centre backs, it's even more of an attacking role. And Jed's is terrific at that.
Yeah, Alexander Arnold was playing as a central midfielder for most of yesterday, trying to make space.
He was at times. Yeah, I'm quite glad I'm not playing anymore, because I would have had great difficulty dealing with all that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if kids had Frank Clark posters on their wall, as Temp says, because the left back role was a different thing back then. The other one I wanted to talk about briefly, I mean, Nathan Jones won Manager of the Year, and a few Forest fans are really moaning about that. I've got no problem with it personally. I don't really particularly care. It could have been Cooper, it could have been Jones. What do you think, Michael? Are you particularly bothered about who wins it?
Well, again, yeah, because I'm pro my own, aren't I? So I'm gonna back Steve Cooper because of the hopeless circumstances in which he walked into that club. So yeah, thoroughly deserving for me. But yeah, I'm looking through rose tinted specs. But Steve Cooper's time will come. He's a young manager for all intents and purposes. I really hope he's a guy that's going to have 3, 4, 5 years in the dugout of Forest. You think back to the success we had under Frank, under Cloughy before that, and some of it was born of the fact that they were able to, they knew the football club obviously, but they were able to familiarise themselves, have their own plans, look at make changes through several transfer windows, and that's the recipe for success. Not chopping and changing. as we have, allowing a new manager to come in and write off half the squad and start again. So the external awards mean far less than the fact that we've got a manager who's universally liked by supporters, ex-pros, the fans, the players seemingly. And I really hope that he's able to create a bit of a dynasty at Forest, because the only success we've had in my living memory was under two fellas that did.
Yeah, Frank, I suppose the only worry for Forest and Steve Cooper at the moment is that a massive club comes calling for him, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's always a worry in football, and no doubt the hierarchy are aware of that. I always remember when I became the chairman at Forest many years ago, a very good friend of mine, Michael Paver, said to me after about 3 weeks, "Who's your next manager going to be?" And I looked at him and I thought, what's he talking about here? Like, we've just appointed Steve Cottrell. I've been chairman less than 3 weeks. I said, what do you mean? He said, what if he falls under a bus? Or what if he just decides he wants to pack it in? Or what if somebody comes in for him? And I took that to heart. And from then on, I had a list. I compiled a list of about 5 managers, which I updated or, moved people up and down and demoted as circumstances changed. Because it happens too often with football clubs. They lose a manager and all of it's a panic. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? So it's important that you have some kind of forward thinking as to what you're going to do if the manager goes for whatever reason. Hopefully it won't occur, but you just never know. And I'm sure that the current administration hierarchy will have thought about that one, Although I'm sure they'll be pretty busy at the minute compiling 2 lists of potential signings in the summer transfer window, depending on which league we're in.
Yeah, I mean, sort of brings us on to something I was going to ask you about anyway. I mean, if they don't go up, are you still excited about it next year? There's a very good chance this team gets broken up if they don't go up, but are you still excited about next season, Frank?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm sure that, as I say, I'm sure that Dan and his people who are now responsible for most of the recruitment in collaboration with the manager, they will, as I say, they'll have a list of players they'll be looking to bring in if we stay in the Championship, and a different list of players if we go into the Premier League. And it's been a marvelous season since after the first 8 games. It's been terrific. It's been a pleasure to go and watch them, and I'm absolutely optimistic that will carry on next season if we're still in the Championship. It'll be a bit more difficult if we're in the Premier League, but it'll be great for the club and the supporters.
Yeah, I mean, you were around the club with Fawaz as owner and other less happy times. I mean, is this the best time you can remember for Forest since, well, I don't know when, since you were manager even potentially?
Well, I think you maybe do a little bit of a disservice to Dave Bassett there. Dave,
oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Dave only had 1 season, really, where he brought them straight back up from the Championship, if you remember, with a very formidable striking partnership of Campbell and the Dutch fellow who went on strike, whose name I can't remember.
I'm not sure I'd say it on here. Van Hooijdonk, I'm not sure we're allowed to say
Van Hooijdonk, that's the one. Yeah, you're allowed to say it, yeah. And so you only had that 1 year. But the thing about now is that the way that the manager and the players and the administration have caught the imagination of the supporters, if you like. And the turnout in games is incredible. He's selling out every game. The atmosphere that's being created at the City Ground is amazing. I've never experienced anything like that. It's unbelievable, and that's a great thing. You need something like that. You need the whole club. I mean, the administration is working very closely with Steve and his staff. And Steve and the players are playing a brand of football that is really exciting the supporters and giving them hope. That's a great word, like giving them hope of better things to come, you know.
One more for Frank before I come to you, Temps, just on that issue. Frank, who should be manager of the season for you? Are you particularly in the Cooper or the Jones camp, or not?
Well, I'm a bit like Michael. I'm not a great lover of individual awards. A case can be made for many people. I mean, I've got to, in my position at the LMA, I've got to give a vote to who's going to be the manager of the year across all 4 divisions, you know. And I'm going to find that very, very difficult. I mean, that's an award that I actually won myself, believe it or not, when we finished 3rd in the Premier League. And that one's a great honour because that's voted for by the whole membership of the LMA, not for any specific whatever league you happen to be working in, you know. So, I mean, yeah, I'm biased a bit like Michael. I mean, Steve has won the Midland Football Writers Manager of the Year award. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that, whether you've heard that one.
We were there.
Have you heard that one, Matt?
We were both there.
Sorry?
We were there last week.
That's how good a lunch it was. I haven't forgotten.
You must have had a few too many wines.
Yeah, well, at least one, yeah. So, you know, I mean, that was a great honour for him to be the Midlands Manager of the Year. You know, but if you make a list of names, it's possible winners of Managers of the Year in all divisions and the whole of football, it becomes very, very difficult. And I'm sure Steve won't be sitting at home sulking and worrying about not winning that award last night.
Coming back to you, Michael, adding to what Frank said, I mean, the youth team are in the FA Youth Cup final. The women, we should congratulate for winning the National League Plate final yesterday against Wimbledon. Frank was talking about that kind of cohesion throughout the club. You work at Trent Bridge off the field. It must be so important to have that joined up thinking throughout an organisation that Forest seem to finally have when they might not have had it in years gone by. Yeah,
very important. And Dane Murphy's kept quite a low profile, hasn't he? But you can see his influence in the way we've gone about things from, like Frank said, the succession planning after Houghton's departure, the signings, many of which were made before Steve Cooper arrived, the loaners in particular, clearly very thoroughly researched, good systems in place. And that happened very soon after Dane arrived. So a year into the project, if you like, you'd hope those lists will be even more fulfilled. But look, we have a lot to do with Forest here at Trent Bridge. A lot of common members of staff that work across the match days, a lot of interaction between the clubs, and yeah, very, very professional setup at Forest. A lot of people there that care passionately about the club. And yeah, for me, it's as good as it's ever been. And there is a cohesion that clearly runs throughout the club. And credit to Dane, the guys that he's appointed, and some of the fellas that have been there for a long time to provide that succession and consistency. I think the health of the club is extremely good at the minute, and just reward for that would clearly be promotion, wouldn't it? So yeah, fingers crossed these last few weeks.
What's your take on Dane Murphy, Frank? You must have met him a few times.
Yeah, well, listen, he's doing a great job. No doubt about that. He made me redundant, so I might be a bit biased here, but I still think he's doing a great job. There were decisions that he had to make, and he's hugely involved in the recruitment process. He's brought in some of his own people to do a lot of that, as I say, in conjunction with the manager. And he's very, very efficient at what he does, and he's the chief executive role is a very important role.
I mean, just lastly, Frank, how important is that relationship between a manager and upstairs? I think you've talked to me before about managing upwards. That's increasingly important these days, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Steve seems to be doing that okay. I don't know how. Like when you're winning football matches, it doesn't matter about winning or managing up. It's not as important. But I'm sure he's got a very good relationship with Dane, with the chairman, and with the owners. And we haven't really talked about them. They're very important. and Mr. Marinakis and Mr. Komenakis. I'm sure they're really enjoying what's happening at the club at the moment. And they've been very, very supportive, even over the last 4 years now, 3-4 years they've been here, when it hasn't been so great. But they've always been very supportive. We've now got a Category 1 rating for the academy, which is very important, and that can only be done with an injection of finance to improve the facilities. So everybody is working together. And the icing on the cake is the fact that the team are winning regularly. In football, when you're the manager, I often sit and talk about this with John Robertson. And John's favourite saying is, win the game on Saturday and it shuts everybody up for a week, I know what he means.
That's where we go. Temps wants to ask you a question, Frank, about 94-95. What do you want to ask, Michael?
Just remember that season so lovingly. I was 10 at the time, and Collymore was my hero. And I think I actually wore out the VHS cassette I had watching back the best bits of that year. But were there any players that you were close to signing, perhaps didn't get across the line, that you think could have made that side, even better? Were there any nearly men that you were just desperate to get into that setup?
Not really, because there was never any money to spend. When we got, there was money to spend when I first got there, but that was all money that I'd brought in by having to sell Roy Keane and Nigel Clough and then Gary Charles. All three had special circumstances around them. And to be fair to the board, they allowed me to spend that money. But from then on, it was always a fight. When we got promoted, I asked the board at the end of the season what sort of money we'd have to spend, and they said nothing, which I thought, oh, great. And I knew that I just felt we needed a bit of quality. So between myself and Fred Ritchie, the chairman, we sort of we did the deal for Brian Roy without really telling anybody else on the board. They weren't very happy at all when they found out about it. But Brian came in and gave us a bit more quality. I'm sure you remember it was a great boost for everybody at the football club, players, supporters, staff, to get a Dutch World Cup player to come to play for us. So that's what it was. I can't honestly say that that I didn't. There's one or two that I wished I hadn't got over the line. Not mentioning any names, but because they're all my fault. But no, I don't think so.
Excellent. If people want to go back, there's a previous episode with Frank about his career, and there's a second episode with Paul Hart where I got them both on talking about management and what an absolute bloody nightmare it is. So people should check that out, certainly. I think we'll leave it there for this week. Some really interesting stuff there. So if you liked it, as ever, do subscribe and give us a like on iTunes, YouTube, and any other platform. Frank, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Matt.
You're very welcome to come back. And Michael, thank you very much.
Good to talk to you, Matt. Good to meet you, Frank.
And we shall be. When will we be back? Maybe after the Fulham game, otherwise this time next week. So do join us then.
Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.